Hello everyone, Dan here from Everyone's Adventure, back for another kind of longer content session all about how we can adapt our outdoor sessions to include school curriculum outcomes as well as some personal and emotional growth outcomes as well. And today I am joined by Justin Lowe. Justin Lowe has been in the industry for many years, but we'll get on to how he got to the status that he is now and how he became about working in the outdoors. We are dressed up in hats and in nice warm coats today. For people who are watching for this when it gets posted later on this week, it is the beginning of February 2023, so it's a little bit nippy in the air. I've known Justin for coming up to probably 6, maybe 7 years, even more than that now. So a lot of people who we've worked with and use this Teachers Toolbox content, they've all asked where I've accumulated this experience and the skill set from. And starting at the very start of my outdoor journey, Justin was actually my mentor for when I was an apprentice. And he's just touched on something there, that there is a lot of the outdoors, and you've probably experienced a lot of outdoor centres which are specialists. And inside that centre, there'll be specialists in different disciplines and in different activities. And what you've seen through Everyone's Adventure and all of our content that we've put up online is it's very varied, with the idea that the activity, the delivery method may be varied, but the outcome is very specific. We've specialised into how can we front load the session and how can we review the session to make the outdoor experience as impactful as possible. And very much the start of our journey, and a lot of the frameworks that we use and you guys have consumed and repeated inside your classrooms have all started with Justin. So I thought it'd be a really nice kind of guest to have on to speak about, if you don't front load a session, what are the kind of outcomes that you can naturally gain through an activity? And for the use of this conversation, we'll work it around the team challenges, mainly because there's lots of free team challenges that you can go back inside the toolbox and download and do inside the comfort of your classroom or in your school field. So for the nearly 30 years that you've been working in the outdoors, is there a few sessions, or at least a few kind of general things that you will see from every group that gain something from doing these team challenges?
Well, I think the main thing I would say, one thing I was very aware of is, you can be an instructor and you can take charge of the experience, and you can literally direct everyone through a pathway that you design for them, you set within the whole activity. Whereas I think the beauty about the outdoors and activity is that there's I'm trying to think of a word, but it's within the experience itself. There's a richness of just being a participant, being involved with other people. That if you direct it too much, you don't leave enough time for those things to happen, and you're not even aware that those things, they're more important than where you're taking the group. Where the group are taking themselves is a valuable part of the experience, not where you can take them.
Yeah, I think you've summarised it really nicely there, because there's a few things that we've kind of noticed while doing this, and I'm sure you guys have noticed when you've been doing your activities from the Teachers Toolbox, is that the character of a person changes when they have a different role. Whether that be someone's taking a leadership standpoint and they're going, right, I have a really good idea, let's follow this idea and see if we get there, or whether it's someone who can maybe bounce off and maybe infuse the other people, get them enthusiastic about the challenge, cheer people up, so that they're really excited about the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, just to pick up on that, I mean, I've probably had some of my best sessions where I've said to the group, look guys, I've got a whole brilliant idea about running it. I've never run it before, so I don't know if it's going to work or it's going to fall flat on its face. But that's a vulnerability that I'm offering them, that I'm sharing with them, that they relate to. They're in the same position. They're not sure what's going on as well, because this is they don't know what some of these team challenges are all about, and therefore me saying, "Oh, I've got a new way I want to explore working with quick fall flat in its face." I'm showing them I don't mind doing that. So again, I'm giving them permission to fall flat on their face as well. I think that's part of what
that vulnerability is a really good word of putting out there, especially inside kind of schools and workplaces as well. There are some people that don't want to try new things because they're scared of what everyone else is going to think about them. So doing this team challenge, and especially doing a team challenge where it's like 50% of the time it will work and 50% of the time it won't work, but the best opportunity we have to succeed is for everyone to give it the wholehearted go, means that you're giving them the opportunity to be vulnerable and telling them it's okay.
Dan, the other thing is that they this is what I found is those young people, they want to be helpful, but they want to help me make this work. They don't want me to fall flat. They want to be part of something succeeding. And any team challenge, it's like the OCD. That model. I think me and Andy literally came up with that after a few conversations where we were just sick of working with some of the sort of same old models that they touch on what you should be doing, but they don't touch on what you should bring to this exercise, this team challenge, the organisation, the cooperation, and the drive. Well, I don't think anyone sets out on a drive to fail. So I'm just helping this drive come out of them by saying, look, it could fall flat on its face. I might not do it the best way, and they're going to work around some of my faults to make it happen.
Yeah. The beauty of the organisation, cooperation and drive model, which you'll be able to find in a separate little link in the Teachers Toolbox with all the printouts for you, is that it kind of breaks down what is required for a team to be successful.
Well, it even helps you structure, because if your organisation isn't to be inclusive, you're hardly going to get that cooperation from everyone. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of idea that this is the structure of what a team needs to be able to succeed in a task. And the whole point of our team challenges is that they are difficult. If they were easy, they would be boring. People would complete them in a couple of seconds and they'd be looking for the next thing. And that's a natural thing for a lot of people to want. They want some sort of challenge so that they can overcome it, and they get that feeling of pride in themselves overcoming that challenge.
And it matches in with so many other models as well. I mean, I'm not knocking the sort of the reduced core learning cycle, the plan, do, review model, but organisation doesn't talk about planning. Sometimes you don't need to plan something; you just need to step up and start doing stuff. But again, most teams think planning is important, and then you go, okay, well, so this is part of the plan, is to have a plan. Brilliant, let's keep going. They're already doing the organisation. They're not having to think through how does this happen, and then plan, do. We're moving into separate sort of areas that they're not combined. They're not sort of all one big thing that's being moved together at one time. So, and then review. They literally don't know how to review something. They're able to look at something, see if it got done or it didn't get done, and their comments are about that. It's not about the experience that they had going through to either success or failure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So you've got the idea that the kind of team challenges brings out a lot of questions and a lot of responsibilities within that in an individual. And a lot of the team challenges can ask them to step up by quite a bit by taking on a leadership role. Some of them can take on more of active participant that I like to call them.
Well, this is something, again, in reviewing, they may not see that Jo, she took the lead on the planning stage. They may not realise that happens, but then you might have to say, in the review, well, one thing I found useful was where Jo, she really took everyone's views into account. She wrote it down, and she tried matching all these things up, so the plan had a little bit of everyone in there. But they might miss that in their whole review of, we had a plan, it worked.
Yeah, without understanding how the plan came into fruition.
Yeah.
And it can be really important, people having loads of different ideas, but it can be even more important for there to be a mediator to be like, right, let's try a combination of these ideas and we can replace parts of the plan as we're going along, following the Cobb cycle plan do review.
So, I've done a course with Roger Greenway on reviewing, and that was probably one of the best ones, is where you replay, in your mind, a series of events where things didn't happen. You look at the consequences of, we didn't have a plan, so what happens when we don't have a plan? No one's really, it's very easy to work through what happens when you don't have a plan. But again, when you get down to details, that was a really, really useful sort of skill to
be able to highlight the different things that come through.
Yeah. If you did the activity and you missed this out, what would the outcome look like? If you missed this out, what would the outcome look like? That's Roger Greenway's probably gone like the professor of the year. So again, when you met me, I had already given up ideas about becoming some mountaineering extremist, or even a great generalist, because I've become fascinated with how the interpersonal, the teamwork stuff just is that's the stuff that we need to focus on. Being a poet, I like that sort of stuff as well.
So we've gone through kind of the vulnerability, taking on different roles, being able to identify how different characteristics come through people, and talk briefly about a couple of models that we can use as part of the reflective process right at the end. But when we're talking about, say, a relationship growth, when they take on an activity, the easiest one for me to be able to highlight is a lot of schools like to do icebreaker challenges right at the beginning of the year, especially if they've kind of recruited lots of students from lots of different primary schools around the area going into a senior school. They maybe have a couple of people they know, but they don't have lots of people. So they do these icebreaker challenges. What do you kind of see the dynamic process of a relationship forming and different things through the activity?
Well, again, you've got to have an activity leader who lets the characters come out. And again, it's not being so directive that you take away all the creative opportunities for the individuals. So if there's a bit of banter from this guy over here, don't close them down just because everyone in the school everyone in that cohort is going to know he's a little bit of a joker, and accept him for what he is. Accept that part of that person. Just make sure that they can do it successfully without sort of putting anyone else down while they're getting their jokes across.
Because a joker can be a really useful tool for you as a leader trying to get people to engage in a team challenge.
That's the beauty. If you really, really get good at it, you'll use these characteristics that people give you because they're giving something of themselves, and that's why we're all here, to share something of who we are. So that's when you get that from someone, whether it's in banter or a little bit of odd behaviour, then make use of it. Allow the character to come out and power through. And if he takes it too much of a joke, we're going to see that later on when things start falling apart, and then it's not so funny anymore.
And that's when the kind of frustrations come out of it, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's and then you've got to see how do you go back to the funny side. Or sometimes you need that joker when things have gone absolutely pear-shaped. They just make a joke of it, and it doesn't matter. It's an activity, and we're learning. We're here to learn. We're not here to get it right every time. Make a joke of the failure right now.
Well, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's very, very easy for us to be able to get caught up with there being you you successfully completed an activity, or you didn't complete it, so it was a complete failure of an activity. But take a spider's web challenge. It isn't life or death that every single member gets through the spider's web without touching
Well,
the
yeah,
other
I mean,
stick.
you know where we run now. It's like, I'm very. If you make a mistake and you're honest about it, you can come back and just there's no penalty. But if you try and blag me, try and sort of pretend that you didn't hit the wire, then I'm going to eliminate that whole. You can stand where you want on that side or this side, but that hole's been eliminated. You know, you're not. You haven't really sort of fitted in it.
Yeah, and so again, it's just extra things. Without front loading a session, we've been able to pull out really good learning outcomes from a team challenge activity, from showing a vulnerability to accepting people's quirks and making them an asset to the team, to being able to give people an inclusive chance to joining in, and also things like honesty. And there might be sometimes that you're running the activity and someone bumping a wire and trying to stay quiet, might be because they're embarrassed about being able to try and attempting that and failing, and being able to recognise that as the group leader
and have the conversation
is the catalyst for the growth as we're going through. So there's loads of these personal and emotional growth outcomes that we're getting from this session without having to front load it at all, by just setting up the activity, whatever it will be, and then having a nice conversation with the people that were involved with it, being like, what was the frustrations? Who was a key player in this? Who made your experience the best experience that you had? And sometimes it's going to be the leader of the group, and sometimes it's going to be the mediator of the group, and sometimes it's going to be that person who is the giant, the class clown or the joker, because their job as the class clown or the joker is to raise everyone's spirits, to not take everything so seriously, and to add that fun back in there. And it's important to kind of recognise everybody's personality, everybody's quirks, and the benefit that they're bringing to every single group that comes through.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've changed quite a lot of how I've run team challenges nowadays. So I'm not interested if you got there, but what I'm interested in is a team challenge. So if you know the answer and you're just going to push the team to get the answer that succeeds, I'm going to stop you halfway through. We're going to go somewhere else, because I don't want you to have that easy success. I want you to work as a team on the challenge, and it's the team dynamics that I want people to draw on to make the success happen. Not this guy knows he's going to push you in the right direction to make sure everything happens just as it should. Now I want the team to be able to find a way of working those relationships again that make this easy to do.
That little block of wisdom there was actually quite useful, with the idea that being a teacher and not working in the outdoors all the time, you might not be so familiar with all the review frameworks and the front loading of an outdoor session. But what you are very skilled at is being able to adapt the same activity to be able to meet every single person's needs. So whether that's you're offering extra support in a lesson to another person, or maybe asking someone who's quite advanced to help tutor the person next to them. All Justin's saying there is you can use your already kind of refined skill set to be able to make the challenge as difficult or as easy as you possibly can. Because like going back to the start, getting people through the spider's web is not the end all or be all. It is the fact that we are stretching the group and asking them to show a little bit of vulnerability and support each other's vulnerabilities as we're making our way through the challenge.
Yeah, exactly that. To work on those relationships in the team, that mean the team succeed at this, not that Johnny knew the answer and drove everyone towards success that they announced or experienced. Yeah, the success for me is they've all been participating, they've all got involved, they've all made the most of these different skills and attitudes and characteristics that they bring in.
So without front loading this session, we've already picked up on some individual growth points that you can reflect upon on your review. We've looked at some team dynamics, accepting people's kind of quirks as the team, about doing some sort of reflection task on this person. I enjoyed the task working with this person because they did. And that you need the ability to be able to adapt the challenge to make it, first of all, to make it progressively difficult as you go along, to see those team dynamics change, or just to find the right level of challenges we're going through.
Well, there's one thing you just picked up on there that I haven't really reviewed before, and I think, well, it's an amazing review point is, you know, if we get through a couple of activities and we sit people down and say, okay, you know, you've seen each other move around now, so I just want you to partner up with someone who you think you could work with on a day, you know, day in, day out. You could work with this person, you know, see how they partner themselves up in a group, and then obviously some questions, like, well, what makes this person the person you most relate to out of this group? Because again, that's what you're asking.
Yeah, very much so. So a few things that we've already picked up on there, just before we kind of wrap up. Is there any nice and quick and easy kind of review model type basis that you would use?
Knowing how people work is one of my favourites. It's an absolute favourite. Let's take this pen as being the sort of line that I'd get everyone stood in a circle. We're all stood around a circle here. Here in the centre, is at the point of the pen, is that's absolute 100% success. And you know, everyone goes, you know, even if you sort of higher ups, this works especially well. But let's say, you know, you just gone through a team activity and you spent 20 minutes doing gridlock or spiders where you felt you could have done it in 10. Most people are going to stand back. They're going to stand back from that. Oh, we did it 100%. It was 100% perfect. Because they're going to say, oh, what really matters to me isn't the 90% that I've done, I've achieved, it's that 10% I didn't achieve. That's what really strikes people when they're doing these things. Now, knowing that, this is a beautiful model. You say, well, are you not aware of the 90% that you did, and that 10% wasn't realistic in the time frame that we're giving ourselves? It wasn't realistic in the way I approached this whole activity. Because again, as an instructor, I'm going to influence a little bit of the outcome. But yeah, it's a great model. Everyone stood up and they moved towards where they think they got towards success being in the middle of the circle. No one really stands there because they're all thinking about these 10%, 5%, 50% that they didn't get to, forgetting about the rich experience that they've just gone through.
Yeah, that's a really good one, actually. A really good one. So I'll below you'll find a kind of a diagram and a brief write-up on that you'll be able to download. And that's a really good kind of instructor-led one. If we were going to do like a peer-to-peer review, any kind of top tips how we would do that?
There's a hot chair where everyone's just got to just take a seat in the hot chair, and they've just got to tell you about their experience. And there's no judgment about it. There's no comment about it. It's just you tell people what you've experienced, and we wear it, we move on. But it's building that relationship.
And to gain confidence with that hot chair experience, a really kind of good starting point is you as the teacher sitting in that hot chair and giving your feedback and your view on the experience it's just had. Just to kind of break that first nervousness of the first person having to sit in the chair, being the person that sits down and goes, right, I thought this was brilliant, I really enjoyed seeing this, and overall, and giving them a summary, and then setting up, and then you kind of put in their heads 3 points of information that they can kind of go down the guidelines for, rather than kind of throwing someone in the hot seat just to start off with. But I've seen some really nice peer-to-peer reviews happen with the hot seat as we're going through. And then the last one, it's always a difficult one, this one. If you were going to get someone to do a self-review, an internal individual review, have you got any techniques or top tips to run one?
I would generally ask them to explore their feelings. Because again, it's our idea. We've got 1,001 ideas. Our brain can take on more ideas than we can use. But feelings are very, very important to how we use our brain, where we direct attention. So I would Yeah, I'd probably get them to explore their feelings about it. You don't need to share anything with anyone, but it's just sit quietly, take a moment out, just explore your feelings from this. And which feelings would you develop? Which feelings are worth trying to sort of minimise? Which feelings are worth exploring further?
And so that kind of relates really nicely to a review of, a framework which I believe Andy's already taught you through on the Teachers Toolbox, which is pressures, tensions and frictions that come through. So if you reflect back onto that model, you'll be able to find out all the information that's on there. But getting someone to just sit quietly with their eyes closed, explaining, kind of almost taking them through a timeline of the activity and getting them to try and visualize what they were doing, what other people were doing, and then just recognize how they felt about each one.
Yeah.
Like Justin said, there's no need for them to kind of share these. This is very much just an internal thing. It almost sets a benchmark for when you continue going through the Teacher's Toolbox. If you keep going back to this one, they can see whether maybe their mindset has changed from day to day, because maybe it was how their day's been or how their morning's been that's led up to the activity. Or maybe it's working with this person's been really good. Working against the time pressure is really negative for me. They can start to build a more clear picture by getting them to reflect on the different things through the timeline and through the self and emotional review as you go through. So this quick kind of podcast was just to go over, first of all, the benefits of taking part in some simple team challenge exercises, which you can do in your classroom or in your school field with all the information and all the resources in the Teacher's Toolbox, and the benefits that your students are going to get for that. We haven't gone into the benefits of being outdoors or the benefits of working with new people. We've kind of stuck with the benefits that you're going to get from these activities, because that makes it really dynamic for whether you want to be in your school classroom, your school hall, or whether you do want to be out in your school field. You don't have to front load any of these sessions. You can pick up on really key and really powerful stuff in your reflection and in your review just by watching the team and getting them to identify different bits as they're going through their activity. If you're interested in providing your own team challenges, there is over 100 free activities with downloadable documents on this Teacher's Toolbox. There's a little video for each one, about a minute or two, that you can see the activity, download the risk assessments and the activity session plan, and you'll be able to use those. Lots of them only use everyday items. Some of them is just hit the print button and get the students to cut out the bits and pieces they need, and their team challenges out ready and in front of them. However, if you want to do something a little bit more adventurous, want to add a little bit of more kind of front-loaded and professional outdoor learning, all you've got to do is click up the top of our website, which is our contact button, type down what your learning outcomes are for. We can either create a free video for you with a couple of activities for you to do with your students, or you can arrange for us to come in and do an activity day or an activity camp. And if you've got any other questions about this podcast, all you've got to do is hit the contact button and I'll be happy to help.